Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com and the Big Four Accounting Firms YouTube channel. In today's podcast, we're going to be giving an update on some layoffs. Recently, there's been some layoffs in Australia, and today we're going to be discussing Deloitte. Now, Deloitte laid some people off in Australia, and the reason that they're laying employees off is because of a decline in revenue and profits. Now, before COVID-19, Deloitte claims that they're having a good growth rate of about 10% in Australia. And then towards the end of their fiscal year, they saw a downturn, and reportedly they had about 20% decline in revenue. And advisory is the line of service where they are seeing the largest impact to their business. Now, previously, in April of this year, Deloitte Australia tried stemming the tide of the impact of coronavirus by cutting pay for their employees by 8%. However, the coronavirus issue has not gone away, so Deloitte had to take their latest measure, which was laying people off. And the amount of people they laid off is 700 people. And this amounts to roughly 7% of Deloitte's employees in Australia. Now, if you remember, Deloitte laid off employees in the United States as well, and that was about 5% of the workforce in the United States. So they laid off 5% in the United States and 7% in Australia. And this is pretty significant. I mean, 7% is pretty close to 10%. If you lay off 10% of your workers, that's a significant amount of workers. And what this tells me at this point, because all the big four accounting firms have tried pay cuts, they've tried deferring promotions, raises, a whole array of different measures to prevent layoffs. And now we're here at the layoffs, and they're pretty big layoffs. And I don't think they're going away. And the only reason they're laying people off is because they see this COVID-19 and the craziness going on around the world right now as something longer term. Because you wouldn't lay off all these people if you didn't think it was long term. You would just stop hiring or other things. And I think you're going to see that too. You're going to see a reduction in hiring. But the big four are not going to completely stop hiring people because new employees are your cheapest employees. So they're going to keep doing that. They'll lay off 90% of their workforce or everybody except partners before they stop hiring, because hiring people is cheap labor. But as I said previous layoff podcasts or previous podcasts where I was forecasting what was going to happen, I saw this was coming because there's just too many long-term implications of businesses shutting down. And there might be enough government stimulus around the world to go to businesses, but businesses are going to save money. People are going to save money during this time period. They're not going to spend a bunch. And this means they're not going to pay for things like consulting. And that's what you saw here in this case, where Deloitte is saying the most significant impact is to their advisory business. So that's going to continue. There will probably be more layoffs around the world. There might be more layoffs in the United States and Europe. So to stay up to date on all that, make sure to subscribe to this podcast. Also, make sure to check out our layoff tracker. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. So if you want to keep track of the latest layoff news, make sure you listen to this podcast, but also check that layoff tracker. Thanks for listening.